Just because it's hard doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong. Empathy is really what like carried us through. Like, yes, I will do this because this is what you need. Patience is like being able to calmly and confidently communicate your needs. We would not do any screen time. However, it's just something that I give myself permission to do. I love chatting. It's kind of my favorite thing to do. If I could just sit down with all of you with a cup of coffee, I would just love to do that. Well, hello there. I am sitting down today. I have a little bit of laundry to fold. I lit my fireplace for the first time this year, and I'm going to answer some of your questions. So I put a question box over on Instagram a couple of days ago, and I got a few questions in there that I wanted to answer and share with you. Let me find my questions here. Okay, so the first question I got was, how often do you rotate work? To clarify, we do Montessori things in our home. I'm a Montessori teacher. One of the Montessori principles is doing toy rotations, where you don't have everything out all at one time and you actually swap things in and out, leaving just a select number of toys and materials to play with and work with. And this actually just enhances the engagement, I think, with the things. There's a few things that stay out kind of all of the time. So we always have books out. I always have a basket of balls. And then I'll rotate out puzzles. A lot of this is based on observation, actually. And so the observation is another really big Montessori idea where we just observe what our child is doing, and we can learn a lot about them and a lot about their interests by just kind of watching what they do. So for example, if I notice that something has been sitting on my shelf for a long time and has not been taken off, that's a good sign to me to swap that out with something else. Whereas if there's something that gets used all of the time, constantly, I'll probably keep leaving it out because clearly it is meeting a need for my child and I don't want to take it off if they're still actively using it. And I find for my children, when they get a little like restless or they just have a really hard time settling into the home, then it's time to swap it out. So I know that's not like super specific. I think if I were to tell you like a time, maybe monthly, I would do it. And sometimes I don't always change like everything. Sometimes I'll just change like one or two things and swap those out and keep certain things. So again, a lot of it's based on observation, just what I'm noticing about my boys, what they're using, what they're not using, and I kind of do it based on that. Okay, another question I got was just first time mama advice. So this mama, it's actually a friend of mine from high school, and she's expecting her first. I did a lot of mental preparation before, having our twins. And I think naturally when you're about to have twins or any baby, you are anticipating that your life is going to change drastically. And so I was really mentally preparing for that, of just this big shift in my life that was going to happen. A good shift, but nonetheless, it was going to be very different. And it was also going to come with a lot of new things that I've never done before, like breastfeeding and, giving birth, being up in the night, being just like running on lack of sleep. Like there's just a lot of new experiences that you don't really get to experience until you've had that baby, nor do you really want to experience them before you need to. So get all of the sleep that you can while you can. A few like practical things that I did that I think really helped the postpartum season and just that like first year when everything is really new and different. And I would just like say to cover yourself with a blanket of empathy. I think empathy is really what like carried us through some of those really hard moments and the hard seasons, because what empathy does is it acknowledges the experience, right? Like, so it's hard that you're not getting enough sleep. It's hard that your baby isn't nursing well. It's hard that they have a stuffy nose. Like these are all hard things that will come with motherhood, but they're not bad, and they're also not anybody's fault. I would want someone to blame for the fact that it's hard, and the truth is it's not my husband's fault that having a baby or two babies is a hard thing. It's not my husband's fault or my fault that nursing is hard. It's hard just because it's new. And when I could be a little more graceful and empathetic towards myself, towards my children, and towards my husband, it really helped that season to go smoother in my mind, and a lot of grace to say, it's okay that it's hard. It's not always going to be hard. And just because it's hard doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong or need to change anything. This is something new. I don't know. I just think I kept coming back to like feeding, for example. I prepared for the fact that that was going to be a hard experience for me and the boys. And it was, but it wasn't hard because I was doing anything wrong or bad. It was just, there's a big learning curve with a lot of things in motherhood. So I would mentally prepare for that. The other like mental preparation I did that was really important was just how my reality was going to change, because for me, I was feeding 2 babies and attempting eventually breastfeeding both of them. Regardless, you're going to be feeding a baby a lot, whether you're pumping and bottle feeding or breastfeeding, you're going to be feeding a baby very often. And so I also tried to adopt like this yes mentality, that anytime they needed to eat or needed their diaper changed, to just say yes. Like, yes, I will do this because this is what you need. And when I could have that posture of saying yes, the demands didn't feel so like overwhelming. That goes back to scripture when the angel comes and tells Mary that she's going to be having a son, and her answer is like, yes, I'm the handmaid of the Lord. And I think we have a really beautiful opportunity in motherhood to say yes, because our child really is like the face of Christ that we get to hold, and what a gift that they are. And we have so many opportunities every day to say yes and to serve them and meet their needs, because they do depend completely on us for many, many months, and the first couple years of life. But for sure, those first few months are very dependent on you for everything. So that would be my advice: a posture of empathy and saying yes. How do you get your 1-year-old to stop throwing everything she has on the floor? I feel you. I know you. I see you. That's a really hard stage. And unfortunately, they don't completely grow out of it. Totally. I mean, I'm sure it improves, but my boys still throw things on the floor. And now we're in a stage where, like, even if one accidentally drops something or spills something, then the other one will intentionally do it just because they did it. So one will bump their water over and spills all over, and then my other son just takes his and dumps it out. I'm like, why? We don't intentionally need to do that. But how can you support it? One, they're looking to see what happens. So they want to know what happens if I put this on the floor. And if you continue to pick it up and give it back to them, pick it up and give it back to them, then it has become a game for them, and they'll know you do that. In some certain circumstances, maybe that's okay to do that if you really don't want them to throw things on the floor. Once they do it, you can just say, oh, it looks like you're all done with that, and then you put it away. We can try it later. For my boys, if the throwing of things or the dropping of things is like destructive, then I just take it away, and I'm not super dramatic about it. It's just really factual. Like, oh, it looks like you're done. Especially with food. If they're starting to throw food on the floor, I'm not okay with that. It is natural to like explore with food. But they do have to learn that when they do that, they're showing us that they're all done. And so you can just share your observation. Oh, it looks like you're all done with that. I'm going to take your plate. We'll try later, and then be done. If you're consistent with that, it's not going to be overnight by any means, but eventually they will get the gist that it's not okay to throw things. So hopefully that's helpful. Here's another one. Twins navigating sharing from 9 months. Still young, but interested in language that you used and use. Okay, this is an area of twin parenting that is challenging, because I have 2 children who are exactly the same stage developmentally, and they don't have a fully developed brain. They don't have much language to communicate what they actually want. And so, unfortunately, they usually use physical methods to get what they want. And it requires a lot of intervening on my part to be the person communicating for them, and to like set limits with each other. I really like the phrase, "I can't let you do that," because when you're dealing with two children that are the same size, sometimes when they're trying to get a toy from the other one, they will get on top of the other one, they'll rip it out of their hand. And when I see that kind of behavior, I will say to them, "I can't let you do that. That is your brother's. But you can have this one," and then help them find something else. Sometimes that redirection works. Other times it doesn't. But my boundary still is, I can't let you do that. Like, I can't let you hurt him. I can't let you rip it out of his hands. And so then I physically intervene. I give the thing back to the child whose it was, and I try to remove the one who's kind of doing the problems. Now, I'm not sure if that's like the best strategy, but that's what we have been doing. If you have any other suggestions, let me know in the comments. I also like to use language that just expresses what they're experiencing. Like, "I know you want that ball. He has that ball right now. I'm sorry, we'll have to find another one. Or could we try this instead?" And it's just a lot of validating their emotions and their experience, and then redirecting them to something else. And it's constant. For a while, probably even until they were like 15 months, it didn't really bother them when they took things from each other. But as they've become older toddlers, it does bother them, and they want their thing, and they're more like possessive over things. Yeah. Validate experiences, their emotions, what they're feeling, and redirect them to something else. And as much as possible, this is hard for me actually, as much as possible to stay calm in these instances. I find what I've learned about myself being a twin mom is that I handle them getting like bumping up to reality pretty well. Like if they fall and they trip, but they bump their head and they're sad, and something between them and the world has caused them frustration or sadness, I can handle that pretty well and be pretty empathetic and loving. But when they hurt one another or cause harm to each other, that's much more triggering to me. And that's where I'm learning to even just like calmly respond to the situation, to walk in, be firm, kind, direct. A lot of the time that actually does mean physical separation. I have to separate them so that they're safe. And yeah, that's what you have to do. At least that's what we have to do with our twins. Maybe it's different with girls versus boys, but our boys can be the most sweet sometimes and then pretty aggressive at other moments. Okay, another question I got was Montessori and views on screen time for babies and toddlers. ... question mark, exclamation point. I guess if I were to say, what is the Montessori view on screen time for toddlers and babies? I think it would probably be pretty well agreed upon that using screen time with babies and toddlers does not align with Montessori principles. There's a difference between like passive and active toys. Active toys, the toy itself is bringing entertainment, engagement to the child without the child having to do anything. Now, passive toys are toys that require the child to act upon. And we lean towards doing more of those passive toys because that helps the child to learn a lot more things. It gives them a lot more feedback on their movements and all sorts of things. So I would categorize like screen time, TV as those active kind of sources of entertainment. Now, what do I do? In my ideal world, we would not do any screen time and we would introduce it much later. However, I've had two situations where I have used it simply as a tool. And I use it as a tool, a parenting tool, because it solved a problem to mitigate a bigger problem. I'm going to turn my fireplace off because it's warm in here. Okay, so screen time. Well, we took a trip on a plane to Texas when the boys were like a year and a half old, and we had little DVD players, and we had DVDs of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And we did that just to keep them still. They had watched Mr. Rogers periodically, It's not like a normal thing that we do, but there were times that they would watch Mr. Rogers. I want something that's based in reality. And so Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is very like, it shows them things that are happening in the world. Even the puppet part of it, which can be kind of like a little weird, is still like humans doing it. So there was no like cartoons or non-realistic characters. So I liked that aspect of it. So we did Mr. Rogers. If we did anything, that was what they watched. Now that they are a little bit older, there'll be 2 in November, the end of November. A show that we have done is Zaboomafoo, like the older show of it. The way that I use it as a tool is on car rides. Not like when we're going somewhere for half hour or 40 minutes and it's not gonna affect nap time, but my boys are prone to falling asleep in the car. And if they fall asleep for even like 10 minutes, then it ruins their nap. They won't fall back asleep and it just ruins the day. It's horrible. And I can't have that. I can't have that happen. I need nap time. They need nap time. And so I will use it on drives that are like coming close to nap time or like right when they should be going down for a nap. We'll put a show on because it will keep them awake. The other time I have been using it more recently is to get workouts in. For a while they were sleeping in longer, like till 7:30 or 8, and so I was able to get my workouts in before they woke up. But lately they've been waking up at like 5:30 or 6. And I just don't have time in the morning with the prayer that I want to get done and the things that I need to get done on my blog to get that workout in too before they wake up, as well as nap time is spent filming videos like this, editing videos, writing blog posts. And so I've been trying to just do it when they are awake. Sometimes they do great and they just can play the whole time that I'm doing it. Other times I will always start with them just playing around me while I'm working out. Other times I will just put Zaboomafoo on my show and on my phone and put it up on like the mantle or somewhere even like far away. So it's on a really small screen and they maybe watch it for like 10 or 15 minutes while I finish my workout. And for me, that's another like, this is a tool for me getting exercise in and like doing that to prepare myself given the season of life that we're in. It's just something that I give myself permission to do. And I think that's okay. I have a strong conviction that like I'm not comfortable putting my kids in front of a screen for long periods of time. But I am okay using it as a tool, as a parenting tool and hack when I'm limited in what I can do. So take that if that's helpful. I'm glad. I'm not like proud to say that we use screens with our boys at this age, but that's my honest answer. This one is so good. How do you practice patience, especially to your spouse and children? I thought a lot about this question, and I was thinking, because clearly I'm not patient all the time. I lose my temper. I get angry. I have been more angry as a mother at times than I have ever been my whole life, honestly. I don't think I experienced the emotion of anger or frustration quite as much in my life before motherhood. There's just things that are triggering. And I was thinking back, like when I am patient, what's different? What do I do differently than the times that it's hard to be patient? And I came to the fact that I am able to be patient when I have clear boundaries. And I am a huge proponent of boundaries. There's a great book called Boundaries with Kids. There's another one called Boundaries in Marriage. And there's just a boundaries book. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in those books. And I'll tell you why, I think boundaries are the key. Boundaries are saying where I myself as a person stop and another person begins. And this idea that I can't control what another person does. And knowing that, because so much when we get frustrated or we're impatient, it's because we want to control something that we can't, usually. And it's really easy to get impatient with children and those really closest to us. And so when I can recognize what I need, communicate my needs, and set boundaries for myself, then it allows me to differentiate between myself and others, what I can control and what others are in control of. I do a lot of if-then statements with my children. If you start banging your fork on the table, then I'll take it away. Like, that's a really clear boundary. I don't want my children banging their silverware on our table. It does happen all the time. And I follow through and I take the silverware away. They like know it. It's a clear boundary. Patience is like being able to calmly and confidently communicate your needs, I think. I don't think patience is me just waiting around for you to obey me or listen to me. It's actually just being honest with what I'm okay with and what I'm not okay with. It's a process of learning how to have boundaries with children, and that translates into your relationships with other people. I spent 5 years in a classroom with 6 to 9-year-old children practicing this, practicing how to offer choices, practicing how to communicate what I need while honoring and respecting their freedom to choose things. And the same is true with the people in our lives, but it's so necessary as a parent to be able to communicate a clear boundary and then follow through on that in a calm, patient way, but with like conviction. Sometimes I don't even have to say anything. I just follow through on what I've said patiently, and I just take their silverware away. And if they're upset about it, and I can empathize and say, I know, I'm sorry, that's really hard. We can try again later. Patience, I think, with my spouse, with my husband. I heard some wisdom once somewhere of just don't ever assume that they know what you're thinking or what you need. And that it's actually our responsibility to communicate that to them. I can testify to that. There's never been a time, or maybe very rarely have been a time where I've stated something, communicated something, and my husband was like, yeah, I already know that you needed that. Usually, like, how would he know if I don't tell him? So I never assume that he can read my mind or that he knows everything that I need or what I'm saying. I think it's my responsibility to be upfront and to be transparent and communicative of what I need. And sometimes that looks like, hey, can we sit down on Sunday night and look at the week and plan together? I really want to know just what the week looks like, rather than being frustrated and disappointed and irritated that the week all felt haphazard and disconnected because he never initiated sitting down and planning. But truthfully, that's not a need of his. That doesn't meet us inner need that he has to sit down and plan the week together. That's something that I need. And so I think it's just really becoming in tune to ourselves and the things that we need, and communicating that to those around us, even our children. I need space right now. I'm going to stand up and go over there. And then I can feel confident, even if I have 2 little people climbing on my legs, I can still feel confident that like I'm doing the right thing because I have communicated, and I can remain as calm as I possibly can in that situation with people climbing at my feet, to just do the thing that I had to do because I set a boundary for myself and for others to hopefully follow. I think that would be my answer. How do I practice patience to my spouse and children is by having boundaries with myself and with others. It allows me to be in control of what I can control of myself and my emotions, and then shows me what I'm not in control of, and that's helpful. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, I got one question on weaning off of a bottle with our children. You know, I simultaneously did bottles and breastfeeding in the beginning, and then we really went exclusively breastfeeding. I have a whole video on like sleep with twins, so that might be helpful because that kind of factors in what we did to wean them. Again, I wasn't weaning them off a bottle, but I was weaning them from breastfeeding. We first cut out night feedings. We did some sleep training around like 8 months, and I know that's another like controversial topic in Montessori communities. I found it was really necessary for our boys, and they sleep really well now. And they slept relatively well, but they were still waking up like 3 or 4 times each, which is like 6 to 8 times a night. And I just couldn't do that. So we needed to help them learn how to fall back asleep on their own. And I'm happy to report they can do it. And I think it's a really important skill that they have. With that, we dropped those night feedings. So they were night weaned first, before, and they would still nurse during the day. My last feeding to drop was the morning one. And I think my second to last one to drop was that nighttime. So there was a period of time where I just slowly started cutting out those middle of the day feedings. And I think I kept all the ones like morning, before nap, before bedtime. I would just slowly cut them out every couple of days, every couple of weeks, depending on how quickly you want to do it. This gal said they're 17 months old and they would like them to be weaned by 18 months old. So at this age, they should be eating like enough solid food. They don't need to be having bottles multiple times a day. You could offer them like milk or something in an open cup at mealtime before nap times and things like that. And then really just one day I didn't do it. And then I was like, oh, I never nursed you this morning, because like my husband got them from their room that morning when normally I did it, and I would just sit in the chair and nurse them. And so then we weaned them. It wasn't super dramatic. They weren't like super attached to it. They liked it, but I didn't find that it was too hard to break it. My suggestion, I guess, if you're doing bottles and you really like want to cut it out, even just like removing them from the house or not like having them visible when you don't want them to have that as an option. Out of sight, out of mind kind of can be a strategy when you're trying to change that, or like changing up your routine. So if you've always been the one to go in there in the morning and feed them, maybe your husband or someone else who can help you to do that part, because then it just changes. Then they don't feel like, oh, mom's not giving me a bottle. Instead, it's just someone completely new doing that part of the routine, and you just make a whole new routine that doesn't include bottles. That would be my advice. I had one other question, which was, where do I shop and get my clothes? Honestly, I do a lot of thrifting. I find a lot of things secondhand. If I were to go to a store, I would go to TJ Maxx. This dress is from TJ Maxx, and there's a website online called the Main Street Exchange. I found some great pieces for like dresses and skirts and things, just really modest, beautiful clothing pieces that I've really liked. I've also really loved any piece that I've had from Banana Republic. I had a teacher discount there when I was a teacher, and I've been really impressed. Like, those pieces have held up so well. I haven't gotten anything from there recently. I also get a lot of my clothes from Costco. They have a lot of kind of cute seasonal things at times. So, yeah. Those are kind of the places that I like to shop. All right, you guys. Well, I got all my laundry folded. Sorry if I talk too much. If you like hearing me chat. If you have any more questions, I'd love to hear them. Drop them in the comments section below, or message me over on Instagram. I'll put all that information in the description box below. Feel free to like send me an email, whatever's easiest for you. And if I get enough, maybe I'll do another one. I love chatting. It's kind of my favorite thing to do. If I could just sit down with all of you with a cup of coffee and go hang out, I would just love to do that. I'd love to get to know you more. If you're new here, I make one new video every Friday. It publishes in the morning on Fridays, usually about Montessori, motherhood, life with twins, kind of Montessori inspired homemaking is what I was thinking about when I started this channel. So check that out. Go check out some of the resources over on the blog, especially if you're looking for like fun fall activities or things for Christmas. I've got a lot of things over there that have been coming out every week. So again, all of that will be linked down below. And I just hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for stopping by my Montessori home. I will see you next Friday for another video. Have a great day. Bye.